Hello, my name is Raquel Garcia, and this is my presentation for Chapter 2, Thought and Language. So this is just one of the quotes that I got from the chapter. It says, "Thought is not merely expressed in words; it comes into existence through them." And I really like that quote. So we begin by identifying. I tried to identify three main topics that I was able to find in all three articles, like the two articles and the chapter that I read. The first one was language is a tool. Number two is experiences deepen our development, and the third topic is language and thoughts are connected. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into each one of those topics. So, language is a tool. Children at a young age are naturally curious and are eager to learn about the world around them. In order for them to investigate, they must communicate in such a way that allows them to gather information and make connections to what they know in order to solve problems. So, for me, this is something that is very evident for me, at least as a pre-K teacher. I know kids are at that age, they're 4 and 5, are naturally curious and very eager to learn. So they do ask a lot of questions about everything, trying to figure out how things work, how things are made, and just trying to find solutions to any problems that arise around them. So one of the things that came to mind when I'm talking about this. Is like I have a 4-year old at home, like my own child. And as we were driving past the like electricity plant, she could see, the smoke or like the steam, coming out of the top of the building. And she asked me, "Mommy, is that the factory where clouds are made?" And it was a genuine. I thought it was just so cute, but I know it's a genuine question, coming from her mind, because what she knows is that's what clouds look like. So this must be where the cloud factory is. So and I know she doesn't have all of the information. She hasn't acquired all the information yet, and so that's why she's asking those particular types of questions. But it's a tool, like that's her tool. That's the way she connects things together. It's kind of like a puzzle, putting all these pieces together, trying to make sense of what's around her. So here I put in the diagram, Vygotsky's Venn diagram, where we talk about how thought and speech are connected and become verbal thought. So language allows us to express our feelings and emotions in such a way that is relatable to others. Vygotsky identified a connection between thinking and speech rather than just seeing them as two separate functions. So we know thought and speech are two separate entities, but Vygotsky saw them as one function working together. So we can see, and here's the Venn diagram, and we see that speech coexists to form those verbal ideas. The speech, the thought come together to form those verbal ideas, our language. So another thing that I was able to see in this chapter is that experience definitely deepens our development of things. So while we may have plenty of background knowledge on certain topics, it's obviously not the same thing as actually experiencing it. So there is a big difference about knowing something and actually being there. So I think one example, a perfect example of this, is just teaching, because although we are trained through courses or books or trainings, you never really understand what it's like to be a teacher until you're in the classroom setting with your students. And so obviously this is one thing that you can read multiple books about teaching and pedagogy and all that, but I mean, until you're in the classroom yourself, you really don't get to experience that. So here's another quote that I liked. It says, "It is through the fusion of thinking, speaking, and experiences." So this is one thing Vygotsky emphasizes, that we construct knowledge. The relationship between thought and language is reciprocal, dynamic, and constantly changing. So it's very fluid. The way that we do take in knowledge and the way that that develops into language is evolving, and there's many variables to that as well. So another article that I was able to find talks about how schema and language are connected also. So a child's schema or mental database develops only after repeated exposure to certain topics or objects. This allows the child to internalize what the objects are and therefore acquire new language. So like we said, schema is like mental database. All the information that is stored in your mind develops as the child is exposed to new experiences. So one example that I can see of this is how my 9-year-old and my 4-year-old, they know so much about chickens. We actually have like, I think it's like 13 chickens at this point, 2 roosters and like 13 hens. And this was all my 9-year-old's idea. So now she is very knowledgeable actually about how to incubate eggs. We've already incubated several times and hatching them and taking care of the baby chicks. So all of this stuff, all of this information, both of them have a very vast amount of vocabulary on this topic because they've experienced it firsthand. So a lot of the words that my 4-year-old says for me are very specific words to her, like schema, what she knows, because not every 4-year-old knows the word incubate. But she knows because she's done this before on several occasions. It just goes to show how schema does play a big part in how a language is developed. So this is from that article I found, and it's another directly from the article. Says learning to play with a ball provides a good example of the way that children's schemas for objects and events are developed. Children need to touch, smell, roll, drop, and throw a ball to develop the concept of ball as the word. Part of this concept includes the sound of words that are used by familiar adults when playing with balls. So this is goes back to the topic where experiences play a very big role and deepen our knowledge and expand our vocabulary, essentially. Just like a basic word, ball, because if the child has never actually seen it, touched it, felt it, played with it, you tell them the word ball, they're not going to know, what that means. So here we continue schema and language. Language offers children a socially constructed method of labeling these thoughts about the world around them, but these symbols have no meaning in themselves. They must be socially learned. So here's just another example of how thought and language are connected. One of the topics that I brought up at the beginning. Language thought partnership. So this is directly from another article that I was able to find. It says, just as there are conditions under which patterns of light striking the retina will vary systematically with certain properties of the distal objects reflecting it, there are conditions under which the sentences that a person hears will vary systematically according to the dispositions of things in the world that originated them. So the way that we perceive, not just children, but us in general, the way that we perceive information is different for everybody, based on various factors, whether it be background knowledge, language, culture, even, socioeconomic status. All of these things play a very big role in the way that we retain or take in information and develop language and form thoughts. So it's just all of those things are interconnected, I think. And that's one of the most important things that I was able to get from all of these articles in this chapter, is that everything is intertwined. Kind of like pieces of a puzzle, and we just grab from here and there and put it together. And essentially that's what develops our language, our thought and our language. This is directly from the second article that I found also. It says, as individuals, each of us has empirical concepts that are entirely dependent on language. Having no means of recognizing the objects of these concepts in the flesh, we recognize them only through their manifestations in speech of others. Even more important is the role of language in concept learning. So one of the things that stood out to me from this particular article is it's at that very end, where it says, where the author states the importance of language in concept learning. So for me, this is very evident again as a teacher because my job for the grade level that I teach is essentially to introduce students to letters and their sounds, most of which, coming in, it's just completely foreign to them. And I can imagine that it just looks like sticks and lines and dots without any context, without me telling them what it is. At the very beginning, we do have to do like an assessment, like just to see where they're at, what do they know, what don't they know. And so most of the time they're just staring at me with a blank face. They don't even understand what it is that I'm asking of them. So I'll ask them like, what is this sound? And they'll start like barking and mooing because they really don't understand. I ask them like, what sound does this letter make? And they'll just like quack at me because they genuinely have no idea what I'm asking them. And one of the things that comes to mind, again, trying to relate all these things to my personal experiences, and one of the things that comes to mind when I think of this, how important the role of language is in the concept of learning. So when I show the kids, when we do those basic assessments, and I still remember a particular student where I was showing him the letter F, like lowercase letter F, and the student just said Facebook because that's all he related to, or maybe they've seen, mom and dad with the little F like symbol, but without any context before, like not even ever being exposed to it. They don't have that language in their vocabulary. It's just the thought and the language are not connecting in order for them to tell me, the correct answer. So I see how that's very important. And so here, just my page of my references, and that is all. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I did try to circle back to those three topics over and over, and it's just those three recurring themes that I did see throughout the chapter and then through the articles that I read. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.